Good afternoon. I'm Lily Greens with Ribbit News, coming to you live from Lily Pond Park, where the first water lilies of the season are in full bloom. The blossoms are drawing dragonflies, bees, and even early migrating herons. Park rangers say the flourishing plants are a sign of activity. Park with the first water lilies of the season are in full.
Wow.
It's not showing up on camera.
Hey, show it back
Stop.
there.
There it is. There it is.
There
What
it
is
is.
it? Oh, there's a bunch of them. What are they? They're blinking, y'all.
What are they doing?
There's lights out there.
Are those coyotes?
I don't know, but
Oh,
they're them.
yeah, those are coyotes.
Is that what they are?
They're
They're them
blinking.
sure out there. They're sure out
There's
there.
a bunch. Look.
Yeah, I see those eyes right there.
Glenn. Glenn!
You see that?
What is that?
I got it.
What is it?
Wow, that's them.
It looks going up and down.
It is.
It
What?
was. There, to see the others over in the
Yes.
trees? Wow, what
I'm
in
getting
the
it on
hell
camera.
is
Leave
that?
the flashlight right there,
I know,
Mom.
I was just kind of looking around.
Run.
What is it?
There's nothing there.
Yes,
Yeah,
there
is
is.
too.
You're down too low.
Oh my God, y'all.
There's something just
Oh, it's
yeah,
cows.
it's a cow. That's why his head was going up and down.
That was fun.
Brown.
Do your best, I guess.
Speed leg inside the rock and be sure to watch your kids. Have a zippity doo
What? No, I am a real person. Maybe we have a bad connection. I'm sorry about that.
Will you tell me you're not a robot? Just say I'm not a robot, please.
I am a real person.
Alright, so I've waited all night to make this post. I have news. So I'm trying to find a puppet, right? Don't ask. And I'm looking online and I'm looking and I'm looking and I can't find what I want. But I start to see a pattern. Like, all these puppets look alike. So I look a little deeper and it's Christian Ministries puppets. All the puppets online are Christian ministry puppets. Like, what kind of monopoly does the Christian ministry have on puppets?
Now, before anybody freaks out, this has nothing to do with religious preference.
There is a monopoly on puppets, and it is run by the Christian cartel. Like, what's going on? Does the Pope own the rights to puppets? Well, maybe.
Joystick in Manila, navigating through the mess, sticky situations. Bring logic to the test as a GTA. Is it real life? Cutting through the static like a jagged knife. Wide to the islands, driving through the flow, tech roads of the city while they pulling on the love. What you mean by that? What you mean by that? Greedy for the paper, living like a rat. What you mean by that? What you mean by that? I'm good, I ain't good, I ain't good. Zero. Remote control, mountain phone way up.
Remember Home Alone 1? Where the mother, she finds out like, oh, you left Kevin. Okay, yeah. And there's a moment where she's at Scranton Airport and she says,
if I have to sell my soul to the devil himself, I am going to get home to my son.
right when she said that, who appears? This guy named the Polka King. Now, in mythology, usually the devil is a musician, someone that plays music, and he's actually part of a band.
Yeah.
Check this out. Right after she said that line, he offered her, okay, I can get you to where we're going. Like, I'm headed that way.
You'd give me a ride?
Sure we will. Why not? You know, you gotta get home and see your kid.
A ride to Chicago?
Sure, you know, it's Christmas time.
Thank you.
What's even crazier, the Scranton Airport, you know where it's located?
Where?
It's located at a crossroads. Oh!
Is this supposed to symbolize fish?
I only know what my design background tells me. I see a trident, and I see two fish.
Right.
Facing each other.
Looks like a shrine to Poseidon or something.
Yes.
Neptune. That's actually where we get the word finance. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
The twin, or double fish, is the chief emblem of Pisces, the 12th and last sign of the zodiac. Pisces gets its name from Poseidon, which is the Greek word for the Roman god and planet, Neptune. Neptune rules over Pisces, and is unmistakably symbolized by the trident. Pisces is the sign of the zodiac which rules over finance and banking. Thus we get the word fiscal, meaning financial, but also fish. We get the word finance from the same root, fin, as in, the fin of a fish, or to finish, and thus Pisces is the final sign or finale of the zodiac. Pisces, being a water sign, is responsible for the endless associations between water and money, as in, the banks of a river, cash flow, currency, liquidity, debt being depth, and so on. Pisces and Poseidon also rule over psychology, and thus the medical symbol for that field is the trident.
Many have argued that the Titanic was sunk on purpose to eliminate opposition to the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank. Some of the wealthiest men in the world were aboard the Titanic for her maiden voyage, several of whom, including John Jacob Astor IV, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Straus, were allegedly opposed to the creation of a U.S. central bank. All three men died during the sinking. According to these theories, J.P. Morgan, the 74-year-old financier who set up the eponymous banking firm, arranged to have the men board the ship and then sunk it to eliminate them. Morgan had a hand in the creation of the Federal Reserve, but also owned the International Mercantile Marine, which owned the White Star Line, and thus the Titanic. Morgan, who had attended the Titanic's launch in 1911, had booked a personal suite aboard the ship, with his own private promenade, deck, and a bath equipped with specially designed cigar holders. He was reportedly booked on the ship's maiden voyage, but instead canceled the trip and remained at the French resort of Les Bains to enjoy his morning massages and sulfur baths. His alleged last-minute cancellation has fueled speculation that he knew of the ship's fate. The fact that Morgan and his wife were both infatuated with astrology and the occult fueled even further speculation.
Jekyll Island is where the Federal Reserve banking system was birthed and conceived.
And at one time, when it was functioning in the 1900s up to the 20s and 30s, some say 1/3, some say 2/3 of the world's wealth would vacation on that island. It was the highest conglomeration of wealth in a single place very often anywhere in the world back in the turn of the century. So it just seems like a little island that's not anything significant at all now, but it's amazing to see the financial side of the history of that spot. Each cottage was, marked and named. Some of them had been restored. Some of them didn't exist anymore, but they had like a sign that this is where this one was, and that one was built by J.P. Morgan. That one was Rockefeller's, and that one was they had each one of them named. Well, they're all kind of native names, and then they're all got some kind of a plaque on who the financial mogul was that had built them. I started asking him about the Indian history of the island, and he lit up. He just was like, that's what he really wanted to talk about, because he loved the Indian history. And so he takes me back to the museum, and he said, we got a lot of stuff on the Indians. He said this was actually like the government main community for a tribe of Indians that don't exist anymore. That tribe was called the Timucas. He said, well, the Jekyll Island Club was actually built on top of everything that the Indians had. So they just kind of wiped the village out and built the club on top of it. So wherever the chief's house was, there was a cottage now. Wherever the council house was, there was now the Jekyll Island Hotel. And he said everything that's built and visible today is actually sitting right on top of something that was significant in the Indian village when it existed. So they had a burial site that they had been very respectful for when they built the museum. When they found a burial site, they didn't move the bones. They left them where they were, and they just uncovered them to where they were visible, and then they built the museum on top of them. They did basically the same thing with the museum that the Jekyll Island guys had done with their houses. They put a piece of plexiglass over the burial site so you could see it, but they were still trying to respect where the bones were and not move them. And so I'm looking at 4 skeletons of the Timucua chiefs. And they knew they were chiefs just from different things that were buried with them. So all of a sudden I look and I realize, man, these guys are really tall. And I commented to the guy that, how tall are these guys? They look unusually large. And he said, yeah, they're all about 8 or 8.5 foot tall. And I'm like, well, that doesn't seem like a normal Native American, especially the tribes that I'm familiar with. He said all the Timucas were unusually tall, even the women. And he said we found other skeletons and parts of bones out in the grounds, and he said we've got pretty good evidence that nearly all of them were extraordinarily tall. He said, oh, by the way, I've got a painting that you might want to see. It's actually the copy of the original. We've got it under lock and key. But he said I got a painting that actually shows the Indians from a group of French colonists that came to the United States. Well, I'd like to see that painting then. So he pulls that out. I'm looking at it, and it shows the Indian, this guy's holding babies in his hands in this picture. He said, yeah, they're cutting those babies, they're hacking those babies up in that painting. And so when you look at the details, 2 of the shamans or chiefs are holding a baby up by the ankles, and they're whacking their heads off and spilling the blood on this altar. And I'm like, sir, I don't want to be disrespectful of your training and archaeological understanding and history, but I don't know of any native tribe that did what I'm seeing here, unless it was an act of war. At this point, I'm not that concerned about the financial stuff anymore. I'm wanting to know, where is this altar? And so I asked him, I said, can you take me to this altar? He said, I can take you to the altar, but you can't see it. And I said, why can't I see it? Is it buried? He said, no, it's not buried, but it has a house built on top of it. I said, who would be crazy enough to build their house on top of a blood sacrifice altar? He said, well, Rockefeller was. So
nice. That's where those guys, J.P. Morgan and all those guys, actually conceived of the Federal Reserve, right? Right over that altar.
That's exactly right. It's the room that they were sitting in when they drew up the entire legislation and plan to pass it that became the Federal Reserve Act.
Wow.
So this was the conception of the Federal Reserve banking system on the parlor sitting on top of a blood sacrifice altar.
Where babies were sacrificed.
Yes. And so all of a sudden it's like, wow, no wonder our banking system has so much corruption in it. Even when people want to, this has got something diabolical, something occultic about it, something evil that's wrapped up with it. This demonic power must have gotten into it. You know?
Into the record, page 55 from the committee's interview with FBI. Have some administrative matters first. I wanted to introduce into the record, page 55 from the committee's interview with FBI employee Roya Demlow, who first I wanted to introduce into the record page 55 from the committee's interview with page 55 from the committee's interview which took place on July 17, 2023. In that which took place on July 17, 2023. In that, we're to leave this interview and we're to suggest or imply that when you said the laptop was real, that it meant that the FBI had affirmatively determined in October 2020 that the laptop belonged to Hunter Biden. We're to leave this interview and we're to suggest or imply that when you said the laptop was real, that it meant that the FBI had affirmatively determined in October 2020 that the laptop belonged to Hunter Biden. Into the record.
The man that we read about in the New Testament, the one called Jesus, if he taught us nothing, it was to question authority. Because anytime you give away your spirituality and your authority, and you do it yourself, you know, no one comes and puts your hand behind your back and forces you to give up your spirituality and your individual freedom and your right to be a human being and decide for yourself. You do that yourself. And when you do that and you give up your sovereignty to the government, to the church, to a religion, to a book, to a concept, to anything, you are enslaving yourself. All I'm asking the public to do is do a little research. See if what I'm saying is wrong and judge for yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm not advocating. I'm not running for a political position. I'm not trying to start my own church. What I would like to see done as a spiritual revolution in this country where people say, just say no. Just say no to organized religion. Just say no to organized government. Just say no to tyranny. I don't care where it is and what color it is. Bigotry, ignorance, ill-informed, stupidity. Just say no. From here on out, the point I'm making is that you need to do your homework. You need to study and find out where things came from.
What happens? What happens when they do find out? What happens to those who their whole life has been the Bible? There's so many people who have, the Bible is what keeps them going every day. What will they have to replace it?
Ask the Russians in Russia today. Ask the Russians in Russia today. What is it like when you find out that you've been hoodwinked, that your government was not the most powerful and most wonderful government on earth, and now it has totally collapsed? Now what are you going to do? You trusted, you brought up your children, you wasted your entire life, and you went along to get along. And now what happens? Your whole world is collapsing around you. And why? Because you didn't do your homework and you didn't stand up for what was right when you could have. You went along to get along. Because it was comfortable at the time, and now it's very uncomfortable. And I'm saying that that's what we all have to do, is look at the uncomfortable facts. Are you aware that there were 15 other major religions? This is history now.
Okay.
Not conjecture, history. There were 15 major theological religious movements in the world before Christianity that taught exactly the same identical story of a Messiah who came to the earth, who was born in a manger, who died on a cross, who had 12 apostles, who died with a crown of thorns. Are you aware that there were 15 major religions that had the same identical teachings of Christianity? Most people aren't. And I'm very suspect of a 16th religion which is copied off of 15 previous religions, and I am told that this one is the truth. I become very suspect. That's the way I am as a teacher and as a researcher and a writer. I become rather suspect, and I tell you something else I'm very suspect, and that is the connection between government and politics today in America. Our country is in trouble. Our families are in trouble. Our whole human race is in trouble. And basically we can boil it down to three problems we all share on this earth in common: religion, politics, and money. And I'm telling you, the three are not separate, they are all one. Because in the ancient world, the king always represented not only temporal power, but also heavenly power. He was the connection between the people and God. If you'll go back to the very beginnings of mankind, there's always been this coexistence between government and religion, between church and state. And of course, in all the ancient empires, the king also was the mediator between God and man. So he wasn't just the king of the state, he was also the mediator between his people and God. Up until the time of the French Revolution, that was always the case even in Europe with the papacy. Today, of course, we in America like to believe that we have a division between church and state. But it is my proposition and my idea that no such division exists, that the church as we know it today in Western civilization is in fact nothing more than a tool and a counterpart to government. It is like two hands, government and religion, both helping the one mind to do its work. And so that's what I am intending to do, is to enlighten people as to where government ideas, concepts, and belief systems have come from, and theology and religion, and where those ideas have come from, and show the connections behind the scenes of how we, because we're unread in the field, are being manipulated and exploited by government and religion. And it's time we look at the real truth.
Yes, well, I think that a lot of people are somewhat walking around in a daze. So many things are happening. They don't know where to turn.
Absolutely.
And I think that many of them, they don't really feel very happy with what they're receiving in church when they do go to church. You know, they feel something is wrong.
It's because something is wrong. It's not true. The things which we have been told are not true. You can prove this in any good library. All one has to do is do something you've never done before. Go to a library and spend all day reading theology, and you will find the world has known for thousands of years that these stories are nothing more than stories.
Now,
as a matter of fact, Rita, the Bible is called the greatest story ever told. The greatest story, not the greatest collection of facts, not the most paramount document on earth, the greatest story ever told. It's a story. One must know how to read the symbols and the emblems and the terms. And that is why
the symbols in the Bible
symbols
too
are in the Bible everywhere. I mean, did you know, for instance, that the book of Revelation was not written by Christians? The book of Revelation was around for at least 500 years before Christianity ever came into existence. The book of Revelation was already in circulation. No John ever wrote the book of Revelation. His name was Ion, I-O-N, from the Ionian Sea. And when in Latin, when you change I's to J, it becomes J-O-N. But in the English, it becomes John. So today we're told that John wrote the book of Revelation. No such John ever wrote the book of Revelation. It was written 500 years before Christ was ever born.
Oh, this is it's just, you know, it's earth-shaking.
Wait till the real truth comes out about religion and politics in America, and you're going to see the earth shake. Astrotheology is the basis for all religion in the world, period.
What does astro mean?
Astrotheology. Theology is the worship of a religion, theology, and astro is the heavens, the worship of the heavens. From as far back in history as we can go, man has always worshipped the heavens. That's why we're even told in Western civilization that when you die, you'll go to heaven. And that, of course, the interesting point that Thomas Paine was making is the same one that I continue to make. That the whole concept of the Son, S-O-N, God's Son, goes directly back to the old concept of God's Son, S-U-N, being the risen Savior, because the Son is the risen Savior. It does rise. And, of course, God's Son, S-U-N, the Egyptians said had an evil brother. He was the Prince of Darkness. And he came out at night to rule the world. When God's Son died and went away, the world was in the hands of the Prince of Darkness. And his name was Set. And he came out at sunset. Okay? Today, even the Egyptians said that newborn son that came up every morning, his name was Horus. And they would come out in the temples of Karnak and the temple at Thebes and Heliopolis, Egypt. And when the sun would come up in the morning, as they still do in the Islamic faith, they would meet in the morning to greet the coming of the new sun. We do it in Easter. We have Easter sunrise services.
Horizon.
Horus rising. That's where we get the word horizon. I'm saying that there are 15 major religions in the world before Christianity that have taught the same thing. It is a very ancient, old story. That's why the Bible's called the greatest story ever told.
So now,
and I'm not saying there's not good spirituality in the Bible. I am saying that it has been twisted and used by political powers for a political agenda to keep us ignorant, ill-informed, and unread, depending on the Lord to come back to help us, when in fact there is no Lord coming back to help us. Education, knowledge, and your own personal spirituality and investigation of what the story is really about. Do your homework. That's the only salvation we have left.
Do you think that has something to do with this, what we call this New World Order, this global unification?
That you can bet on.
Chris K here with, you've heard about it? Here it is, the Big Arch. I'm gonna do a taste testing right now of this product, but I'm also gonna eat it for my lunch, just so that you guys know. I'm not actually gonna eat it for my lunch, I just need them to think I'm going to.
Sir, we're still rolling.
Oh, hello. Here we go. Oh, wow. Holy moly. That's a big burger. I don't even know how to attack it. There's just so much going on with it.
What was that, sir?
I don't want to do this.
It was the board's decision.
Okay. No, I would. All right, moment of truth. That is so good. That is a big bite right there. This is a delicious product. Less pain? Okay. This is a delicious product. Look like I'm enjoying it. Have you had this? This is a delicious product. That felt right. You could still see the pain in my eyes? Well, I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my fabulous lunch. Big Arch, if you can find it, get it. And cut.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, Stew Crew. I hope everyone is enjoying the festivities. I, unfortunately, did not plan ahead well. I was hoping to have green edible glitter for today's bowl, but tragically, it did not arrive in time. Not a huge issue, though. I would in fact argue that this bowl has a much larger issue to contend with. I have come to the conclusion that I am not fond of eggplant, at least as a stew ingredient. I feel it has a weird flavor and turn to mush very quickly. The tomato flavor does work quite well with the extra onions and red chili flakes. The stew does at this point mostly taste like red chili flakes and onion and tomato. Far from a terrible combination, but the eggplant is unpleasant and it does leave a lot to be desired. I think I would give it a 5 out of 10 with the kombu maybe saving the broth's flavor. And to celebrate the holiday, I have a lineup of all green ingredients, starting off with this can of Pozole Verde. Please excuse my pronunciation. I have very high hopes for it, and it is quite green. Tomatillos, poblanos, and cilantro are all things that I enjoy. I will be following up with these green chilies. They're not really spicy, so I don't think I'll have a problem with too much peppers. But I suppose it could be a lot alongside the red chili flakes, but adding these really just seemed like a no-brainer today. I also have this green goddess seasoning blend. I'm not sure how it will turn out. I think you could make an argument I should have gone for the pickle seasoning, but I've heard good things about this one as well. Finally, the fluid levels are looking a little bit low, so I will go ahead and top them off with this can of Guinness. Guinness was the first alcohol ever added to Stuthius way back on day 21. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye.